Welcome to the series. I'm your host. Let's begin. European sailors ventured into the open ocean in ships that were often little more than glorified fishing boats. They had no maps and rarely a compass. They had no way to navigate. Let the waves carry you. The journey has begun. Now close your eyes and imagine you are hurtling through space.
Not in a rocket.
But in a wooden ship. You feel the pull of the wind, the slap of the waves, the creak of timbers groaning under the strain. Your stomach churns as the vessel pitches and rolls. You're on a ship like this, hurtling toward the horizon, where the sea and sky appear to meet. No way to calculate their position. Please subscribe to the channel and let the adventure begin.
I'll wait to know.
If they would ever see land again. They sailed not because they wanted to, but because they had to. For many, the endless ocean was a watery grave. But some made it to the other side, where they found riches beyond their wildest dreams, and enough gold to make kings jealous. You can rest now, the noise of modern life. Its horns, its headlines, its glowing screens, has faded behind you. Tonight you are drifting, not on a quiet road or a soft trail, but across a vast, endless sea. Beneath you, old timber creaks, above a sky heavy with stars, and around you, only water. Endless, shifting, silent water. There is no turning back, only forward. You are aboard a vessel built of hope, fear, and soaked rope, bound not for safety, but for the edge of the world. In the 15th and 16th centuries, in this episode, we'll meet some of those sailors, anonymous men who lived and died without a map. Then we'll follow one captain whose name did survive. We'll descend into the secrets of sunken ships, and finally we'll visit those who never set foot at sea, but claimed everything it gave. Let your breath slow, if you'd like to continue this journey. This is a story about sailors. Well, specifically, this is a story about what it sucked to be a sailor in the age of exploration. Because despite what you might think, life for a sailor in the 1500s really wasn't all that glamorous. In fact, it was downright awful, and most sailors knew it. That's why they preferred walking the plank to signing on to another voyage. If it smells strange, you don't ask. If it tastes foul, you drink it anyway. Yesterday, a man collapsed during mass duty, heat stroke. You lie awake in your hammock at night listening to the rats. Disease ran rampant aboard ships, killing more sailors than battles or the elements ever did. Fresh food was a luxury, and starvation was a constant threat. Injuries were common, and the quality of medical care was, well, non-existent, really. Sailors faced danger at every turn, from the threat of piracy to the risk of shipwreck. And when I say that these men preferred walking the plank to signing on to another voyage, I do mean it. The vast majority of sailors who went on voyages of exploration did not survive to return home. Of those that did, few emerged unscathed. The life of a sailor was hard, dangerous, and lonely. But for those who had no other options, it was also a necessary one. The coughing, the groaning of the ship as it sways endlessly through the black. You wonder if you'll ever see land again. You wonder if it matters. You close your eyes. The ship groans, and another day begins. Or exhaustion, or infection. He died by sunset. They tied him to a plank and tipped him overboard before the stars came out. No ceremony, no song, just a splash. You didn't know his name. Your own hands are blistered and cracked. Your gums are swelling. And if you want to hear more stories about the age of exploration, well, there's plenty more where that came from. You haven't chewed fresh food in a month. Your teeth feel loose. You try not to talk much. Every breath tastes like mold. The air below deck is thick with the scent of mildew, human waste and tar. The captain shouts above. The sails groan as the wind shifts. Climb the ropes with fingers numb from salt and rope burns. The sea rolls beneath you like a sleeping beast. Always there, always ready. There are whispers among the men about sea monsters, about storms that come with no wind, about ghost ships, masts splintered, still drifting with dead men at the helm. You tell yourself not to believe it, but when the wind dies and the stars vanish behind clouds, it's hard not to. You wake in darkness. Not the soft darkness of a bedroom, but the wet, groaning dark of a wooden hull, low ceilings, creaking boards, and the sour stink of sweat. Seawater and something rotten you can't name. Your head knocks against the beam above your hammock. You're not even fully awake, but you already taste salt, not from the ocean air, but from your own skin and the blood from your nose. Someone coughed all night above you. You hope it wasn't plague or scurvy or anything worse. It's hard to tell these days. You haven't seen land in 3 weeks. Or was it 4? You've stopped counting. Breakfast is the same as yesterday. Hardtack biscuits crawling with weevils, a scoop of dried peas, and a tin mug of brackish water. Some of the older men carve charms into the wooden rails. Some pray, others just stare, eyes glassy from fear or fever or both. Life for a sailor in the 1500s was an absolute nightmare. So next time you hear someone romanticizing the life of a sailor, just remember it wasn't all that glamorous. He was born in Portugal, but he died far from it on an island whose name he never learned. This is the story of Ferdinand Magellan, the man who died for his map. He traveled the known oceans of Europe, fighting, exploring, learning all he could about navigation and charting new courses. But it was never enough. He wanted something more. Not gold, not glory, but a passage. A route to the east that no one had found. A way to circle the world. Portugal would not fund him. So he turned to Spain. It was a betrayal to some, but to Magellan, borders were just lines men drew. Magellan did not live to see it, did not find the passage he wanted. He did not receive the praise he deserved, but the world changed because he believed it could. He drew a line through the sea, and even in death the sea remembered it. The earth, he believed, had no true edge. When Magellan was in his 20s, he fought in wars for Portugal, hoping to rise in the ranks and get the funding he needed to make his map. In 1519, he left Seville with 5 ships and over 200 men. Many would never see land again. The voyage began with mutiny, cold, hunger, ice, but Magellan, ever restless, involved himself in a local conflict. He took a side, took up arms, and fell. His death was quick, a poisoned spear in a forgotten battle on a small shore. His body was never recovered, his grave unmarked, but his ships sailed on. Men died in the mountains of South America before they ever reached open ocean. Magellan pressed on through a strait later named for him into waters no European had ever crossed. They sailed west. Day after day, the ocean was calm but endless. They ran out of food. They ate sawdust and rats. Some drank seawater and went mad. Still, they sailed. When they finally reached land, the islands now known as the Philippines, they thought they had made it. 1. The Victoria limped back to Spain in 1522, tattered, empty, but it had circumnavigated the globe. This is our channel. If you want to see more of our stories like this one, you can do so right here. Beneath the waves, the sea does not forget. It is a patient keeper of secrets, swallowing ships, sailors, and dreams whole, and holding them in silence for centuries. Survivors made it to shore, but what followed was worse than drowning. Mutiny, murder, and madness on an island no one had charted. Where did they go? What did they see? The sea has many languages. Some are written in storm, others in salt. An entire world fell beneath the waves, and now they are silent. Teeth still clenched, fists still tight, eyes still staring at the sun, all swallowed by the dark. The Mary Rose was more than a ship. She was a floating town, a community contained, a world unto herself. There was the Mermaid Tavern. There was the surgeon's room. There were staterooms with 4 poster beds and chamber pots. There was a bakery, a blacksmith shop, even a prison. You can still explore these rooms today, preserved beneath the waves, so you can experience life aboard the ship, the smells, the sounds, the textures of wood and rope and sailcloth. You can hear the loom clattering as women weave, the blacksmith hammering, men shouting orders, the cook swearing at the oven. And you can see them too, the men with their rapiers, the boys at their games, the surgeon with his instruments, the captain with his charts, all going about their daily business, laughing, fighting, eating, sleeping, living, and then, in the blink of an eye, dying. But the most haunting are those written in absence. It's not just what is found, but what is missing. One minute they were hoisting sails, the next they were being dragged down by the relentless sea, and now they are silent. Teeth still clenched, fists still tight, eyes still staring at the sun, all swallowed by the dark. Only the ocean knows what happened to them. What dreams they dreamed, what prayers they whispered, what hopes they held. But we can try to imagine. Imagine a young sailor, barely a man, sitting in the crow's nest, climbing down to join his friends for a stolen mug of beer. Or a mother tucking her young son into his bunk as the ship rocks gently on the waves. Or the captain, standing at the helm, charting their course to victory. These are the stories the sea keeps, the lives lived and lost, the hopes and dreams that once soared as high as the masts, only to be cut short by the unforgiving waves. And now they are gone, taken by the sea, leaving behind nothing but echoes of their laughter, the faint smell of their sweat, and the lingering taste of their dreams. So when you hear the tide tonight, perhaps it is just water, perhaps it is memory, slow, deep, and heavy, pressing gently on the stories it still holds. Artifacts still wash up. Silver coins, rusted pistols, bits of blue Delftware, once meant for elegant homes in Jakarta. Elsewhere, archaeologists have found lead-cursed tablets hammered into hull beams by sailors hoping to ward off misfortune, or perhaps to curse their captains. In the Baltic, where the cold preserves what time would rot, lie ships from the 1500s with cannons still loaded. Decks intact, shoes lined neatly by hammocks, as if their owners had stepped out but might return any moment. From La Belle, a wreck from 1686 found in the Gulf of Mexico, came the small and intimate, a child's toy horse, a cooking pot still coated in soot, a wooden writing tablet never written on, and always we find combs, personal worn, silent, hair still clinging to the teeth sometimes, and mirrors, clouded by time.
Ow.
What faces last looked into them before the sea closed over everything? The ocean floor is littered with bones of ambition. Some sank in storms, others were lost to war, greed, or maps that lied, and some simply vanished. No sail torn, no beacon lit, no cry ever heard. Let us begin with the Mary Rose, a warship of King Henry VIII. She sank suddenly in 1545, tipping sideways just moments after raising her sails, as for centuries she lay in mud, preserved by time and salt. When divers found her in the 20th century, they uncovered a frozen moment. Wooden bowls still stacked on the galley shelf. Long bows beside their owners, who never released their final arrows. A dog curled in what used to be the carpenter's cabin, ship not just wrecked, but paused. And then there is the Batavia, a Dutch ship that wrecked off the coast of Australia in 1629. Then there are the ghost ships, not just myth but real vessels found adrift. No crew, sails fluttering, tables still set for meals. Beneath the waves, the sea does not forget. When the Mary Rose sank, she took with her 400 souls, men, women, boys. For the people on board, there was no warning. You can barely hear it over the wind and the waves. But there's another sound out there on the ocean, the lapping of silk on stone. Kings and queens sipping wine, counting their gold. For not all explorers bled under the hot sun, and not all journeys were taken by salty dogs. Some adventurers stayed warm and dry, and traded spices for rubies and sapphires, jewels to deck their royal halls. They too sought the new riches of the world, the silks and the gold, the ivory and the apes. But their map was unfurled in palaces and taverns, bought and sold in boardrooms and courtyards. They dreamed of empires not built on blood and bone, but on paper and parchment, on charts and claims and cold hard cash. Not all explorers charted unknown seas, but these were the royals and merchants who paid to send them. They were the map-makers of the age of exploration, and their tools were goblets and quills, chests of gold and cabinets of maps. In Lisbon, Seville, and London, they lived in palaces that muffled the world outside, where maps unfurled across long wooden tables. They filled the gaps with dragons and gold, with monsters and marvels, with anything that sounded exciting. Terra incognita, they wrote, polished, translated from misery into numbers. Gold, silver, silk, ivory, and apes, that's what they wanted to hear. If a voyage failed, they buried the reports deep in vaults. Only rumors of monsters and marvels reached their ears. And so they gathered in smoky taverns and grand halls, plotting courses and collecting tales. They dreamed of empires not built on blood and bone, but on paper and parchment, on charts and claims and cold hard cash. The unknown land, here be monsters. Perhaps these men, and sometimes women, funded voyages not with love of discovery, but with cold mathematics. They took vague reports from half-starved crews and turned them into beautiful lies. They traced coastlines with compasses and guesswork. They painted the world not as it was, but as power wished it to be. Each map a promise, each line a claim, each name a theft done with pen instead of blade. These chambers were as dangerous as any sea. One wrong rumor that a voyage failed, or that a rival's ship returned richer and fortunes crumbled. Alliances shifted. Wills were rewritten, letters intercepted. No storm could sink a patron, but gossip could. And so they smiled, dined, and commissioned more ships, hired more men, redrew more maps. Will this journey bring back gold? Will it cost less men than it earned spice? Will it grant me more land to name, more power to wield? They sipped wine while debating such things. Their rooms were quiet, heavy with perfume and politics. Outside, their cities grew rich from slave labor, stolen silver, and sugar. But they would never smell gunpowder or hold a dying sailor. Scholars traced routes across the oceans, naming islands and outlining lands unknown. They drew pictures of monsters in deserts and mountains high, but they didn't know what lay beyond the waves. They'd never seen an Indian temple or an Aztec pyramid. And in the end, when the explorers died, lost at sea, buried in heat or hunger, their names often faded. But the sponsors endured. Their portraits still hang. Their palaces still stand, though they never touched the tide. They owned the waves. They kept their distance from the dangers of the deep and the devils of disease, but got filthy rich by funding those brave enough to sail. These were the sponsors of explorers, and their lives were very different from the men who roamed the oceans. While sailors swung in hammocks, nobles slept on silk. While commoners fought for scraps, kings feasted like gods. Wine flowed in their halls. Their cups were filled by servants, their plates piled high, while common folk went hungry. Their clothes were custom-made and fit like a glove. Sailors wore leather and linen that chafed and tore. Kings and queens collected jewels like children's toys and lavished gold on those who brought them riches untold. They ruled from cushioned chairs in rooms with heavy drapes, far from the rocking waves, but near enough to take credit for each victory. They commissioned the voyages, yes, but they rarely sailed. Their maps were made not by those who'd seen the oceans, but by scholars who'd only heard rumors. They read reports from survivors, most of which were edited. These map makers were hired by crowns and nobles, bound by ink and oath. The ocean was distant, but its wealth was very real. So we end this journey, not with sails or storms, but with silence. From the stench of soaked decks and the creak of timbers, from the salty sting of spray in your hair, to the ink-stained hands of kings. You've seen the world in shades of horizon and cloud. You've walked alongside sailors who slept among rats, sharing stories around a flickering lantern. You've weathered the doldrums with us, where the air was thick with humidity and the only movement was the sway of the ship on endless waves. You've felt the icy bite of winter storms, the kind that chilled you to the bone and made even the bravest sailor question his luck. And you've stood at the helm with us, guiding the ship through treacherous waters, where every wave threatened to swallow the light and drag it down into the abyss. The only sounds were the slap of waves against the hull and the sigh of the wind in the rigging. You've heard the dying thoughts of a captain, his voice a broken whisper as he clutched a treasure map, his empire fading with the setting sun. And those who dare to navigate its waters will find treasures beyond their wildest dreams. So let the sea settle, my friends, and let the night be long. May the stars guide your path, and the moon light your way. And may sleep come to you as softly as the tide, carrying with it the whispers of the ocean and the dreams of adventure. You've peered into the barnacled bones of lost ships, feeling the echoes of their last voyage in the hollow chambers. And you've stepped into velvet-draped chambers where emperors were made and men were forgotten, where the weight of empires was measured in gold, and the only light came from the flames of distant shores. You've sailed with us through the sun-drenched days and star-studded nights, where the moon was a compass and the stars our only company. But through it all, you held on. You held on to the hope of new horizons, to the promise of uncharted seas, to the whispers of adventure that echoed in your soul. And now, as we approach the final chapter of our journey together, I ask you to hold on to that hope, to nurture that adventurous spirit, and to never, ever give up. For the sea, like life, is full of surprises, full of challenges, and full of beauty.